So I was reading yesterday. Father's Day is, and I don't know how they rank these. It's the 20th ranked holiday. I can't even think of like 19 other ones, but it was like Christmas is 1 and Mother's Day is 2, which is like makes sense. God and your mother, it kind of makes sense. And then it just kind of goes to Halloween is like 6, and they were kind of ranking these like, well, that's pretty far down there. So it was I don't know. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but I just thought it was sort of interesting. Like, I was trying to name the other 19 with my wife. What are the other ones? So Memorial Day, Labor Day. Okay, we're just kind of going through them all. So anyhow, today I'm gonna talk about the men in my life, as well as weave in some quotes from my dad's the guy in the middle. He was born in 1929. He's deceased. This picture's in 1944. His brother, my uncle, is 9 there. I'm physically very similar to my uncle, kind of long, And then that's my aunt, who's 80 years old now. She's 3 there. She's just absolutely adorable. So, my dad was amazing. He went to Park College in Missouri. Now, Park College is kind of like Chapman, a little community college, not community, but a smaller school. And he has a degree in he was a math, physics, and engineering. He was really bright. Yeah, and then I'm a statistician. That's a strong word. I have a degree in math with emphasis in statistics. That's a little more accurate. And my daughter just graduated with a degree in biochem. So it's definitely one of those family deals. My dad became the kind of the man of the house in. By the way, where's the clicker? You got the clicker, Mark?
The clicker.
Oh, thanks. Somebody stole it. Let's see here. Okay. So he became the man of the house in the early 40s because my grandpa had to go to Washington, the state of, because he was working on the Manhattan Project, not the bomb itself, but the housing and things like that. So, he lived on a farm in Missouri, so he was doing all the chores. And you imagine being 15 years old, waking up, taking care of the entire farm, going to school and come back. That's just not something that's real common. And we can talk about men a lot, but I think background matters. And I'm going to read this to you. I saw this quote. I'm just kind of quoting it. There are numerous studies that show that family history is the single most underrated psychological aspect of a person. The pathways of paternal or maternal success are thought to be passed down by stories that create a psychological pathway for future decisions on effort, success, and outcomes. I really like that. And I feel like, for sure, the stories my dad told me and the things that he told me passed down to my daughter were just absolutely amazing. So, and this is one of them. My father's first name is George. So I often quote my dad, the book of George. This is not after Revelation or anything. This is just my dad. So this was his number one quote. Snyders don't quit. I'll never forget the first time I heard it. I quit 5th grade track. Now, who cares about 5th grade track? Well, he did. In those days, elementary schools had sports, and all the seasons were really quick, like 6 weeks. So you're playing football and then basketball and all these things, and track came at the end. I just didn't want to do it. So I'm sitting on my bed, and he's talking about the Great Depression and how awful it was, and we had to unite and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I have no idea what this relates to in 5th grade track. You know what I mean? Finally, he simplifies it and said, "Hey, Snyders just don't quit." I go, "Oh, okay. So feel free to use this with your family. Just insert your name there, So, and it made sense. And then I ended up running around the block every day until track season when my dad got home, because he wasn't going to let me quit. So I was kind of on his track team, which is kind of a cool idea. Many years later, my daughter, who's just amazing, she was a 4-year starter in sand volleyball in high school. She was a great athlete. Her first time she played sand volleyball, I'm sorry to embarrass you, Morgan, she went an entire summer without winning a match, the whole summer, because she was like 9. And I said, well, just don't quit. And I've never seen somebody work so hard. And she got better and better and better. And eventually, all those kids that beat her, she would eventually beat. I've never seen somebody hang in there so much. She probably was 0 for 20. She played that many matches her first summer and didn't win one of them. And now she's going to Europe to play volleyball. I mean, it's a completely, it's that phrase matters. So this is an awesome photo of Dad and myself, just how similar we are. I mean, just ridiculously similar. So he obviously had a STEM degree and all that kind of stuff. And this photo I just love. I just took this in April. That is Morgan's hand on her diploma, my hand, Sandy's hand, and my dad's ring. Is that cool? So, yeah. Like I said, family matters. Family. I just think, I see that, I think, oh my gosh, my dad, has a STEM degree. I have one, Morgan has one, and Sandy also is, she does a lot of things in her job that have to do with that kind of stuff too. So, all right. So this is my foster daughter, Ashley. She hasn't been here for a long time. She lives in Oklahoma now. There's a guy in my life named Ben Akins. He's probably 80 years old now. He was a foster parent when I was in high school, and I saw him foster parent 5, 10 kids, and he was really good at it. He gave me the idea that maybe I could be a foster parent someday. Like I said, dads matter. These things matter. They plant little seeds in you when you're young, and then it happens. Because when we had an opportunity to get Ashley at age 15, I had seen it done by a good man. And I remember Ben once told me I was in high school, I think you're going to be a really good dad. I don't know what he was basing that on, but it made an impact on me. So I think that stuff matters. Okay. All right, here's some stats on fathers, because I teach statistics and I can't do anything without mentioning some stats. There are 7 million single fathers in the United States. And studies show, by the way, that single fathers, their kids have very similar kind of turnout rates, how they measure these things, as people with 2 parents. So having a father in the home, it makes a big difference. There's 1.4 million stay-home dads. 19% of dads want nothing for Father's Day. Now, I'm in between here. I don't want anything, but I did buy my own gift. I did. And then I gave it to Sandy and just said, hey, can you give me this tool set? And then I used it the other day already. And then could you clean it? She goes, no, I just put a bow on it. I said, okay, I got it. So. And then number 4 is just so random. I thought it was, I don't know how they measure time, but apparently Finnish men don't work very hard or something. So they spend more time with their children. I don't know what the deal is. So I thought it was just kind of interesting. So, okay. This is the key passage of what I'm going to talk about the whole day, okay? Train up a child in the way that he should go. Even when he's old, he will not depart from it. All right. This is, to me, so interesting. The question that I have is the way a child should go universal? I say yes. Does it vary from child to child? Yes. From generation to generation? Maybe as well. And I'm going to give you some ideas I'm a teacher as well, just from a teacher's perspective on kind of what's going on out there. It's very confusing for young boys today. It's a very confusing time. It's very difficult for them to know what it's like to be a man and be a father. It's very difficult. So let's, a couple more quotes from my dad, because I love the stuff he said. You'll just laugh at these things. He'd always say this: if everyone likes you, then you probably stand for nothing. I really like that quote. He would always tell me. And then he would explain, he goes, son, did you know that a blowout election is only 55% vote? I go, really? Only 55% have to like you and you're popular? He goes, yeah, that's it. I always liked that quote. And this is his most famous one I've used all the time. Don't worry about what people think about you. No one is thinking about you. My dad was just awesome at that kind of stuff. I just wanted to slip those in there. It really isn't there. I just loved his quote. He was great. All right. What are some universals that we should be doing for our children? Okay. It is for discipline. This is Hebrews 12:7. You can read that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom a father does not discipline? Wow. Discipline is a really hard thing. And I want to really congratulate all the dads out there that really try to do that with their children, because it's not easy, because you have so many conflicting kind of rules or ways to do things, and you don't know which way to do it. You don't know if you're being too harsh or not. But it's really important that we discipline our kids. And I'm not going to get super specific for you, but I will tell you this. at the end of every school year, and it happened this year, and it happens a lot to me, but the end of this year was a little unusual. I had 3 kids write me notes. They were very long, too, and all 3 said, "You're the only teacher," or one of the few, I forget how they said it, that was willing when I was tardy to give me a detention and stick to it. You're the only one that said the homework is due Friday and you kept it. You're the only one that didn't put up with, what we were trying to do. I had 3 different kids write that to me, 3. And I thought it was really interesting. I really feel like people crave discipline. I know I do. I like it even at my age. I'm 58 years old. I really like it when my boss has structure as well. I like that stuff. So when you're being consistent in disciplining your kids, you're doing the right thing. That is a thing that you should do. Here's a stat for you. Over 50% of the reason people are let go on the job is not related to the job, but rather to personality traits like the inability to get along, lateness, etc. Over half the time, that's how they're let go. So that discipline stuff does make a difference. Now, these are the hard ones. While you're disciplining fathers, mothers, but since it's Father's Day, we're going to go with that. Do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. And then there's a parallel passage in Colossians, fathers, don't provoke your children lest they become discouraged. That is really, really hard to do. That's an art to be able to do that. Wayne, my father-in-law, is incredible at that stuff. He's great at being able to discipline but not discourage anybody. That's been a harder thing for me. Sometimes it's difficult not for me to go a little too far. It's really, really challenging. And Wayne was always the model for me. Again, I read this this quote, and I wanted to say this to you. Dads are best when they have power and they know how to control it. When they are independent but choose to be a part of a group for the greater good. When they have righteous anger but choose to deal with things calmly. That was very powerful for me, and it's really hard to do. I wish I had a step-by-step manual on exactly how to do that. But we'll talk about it in a little bit, how to make sure you have a plan for your children, going in. What am I going to do if? Kind of having that plan pretty set out. And for the boys in this audience that are going to become fathers someday, I teach. I know I'm around young people. For you boys, girls like strong men. They do. They just do. They like principled, strong men. They don't want them to be weak. Sometimes you can be over-compliant and nice and sweet. That may or may not pay off for you. I think it's important to be strong. You need to be nice, but in a godly way. And I think meekness is maybe the right term in that sense. Meekness is humility and strength. I see that all the time. Okay. This particular book, I just wanted to recommend. I really like it, To Train Up a Child. If you are a young father out there, Sandy and I read, this book's been around forever, but we read this, we really liked it. It talks about having a plan to train your children, having one ahead of time. I thought it's absolutely wonderful, and it really does a good job of explaining it. The big thing is first-time obedience was a big deal in this, so if you're like, say, hey, turn off the TV, and if they don't, then you got to take action and, kind of do something, whether that's a timeout or whatever you're going to do for that situation. But that's a really good book. That really helps me to have a story ahead of time. All right, I'm going to jump into Galatians 6:7. This seems a little offbeat from the other stuff I'm doing, but it's not, because I'm going to introduce to you another father figure of mine. My high school basketball coach would drop this on us during practice. He left the middle sentence out because it was a public school. Do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked, a man reaps what he sows. So when we were playing poorly, which was all too often, he would often talk about a man reaps what he sows. And he was the first, I was probably 15 when he coached me. I mean, you're talking, this is like 1981 or 82. And I remember him saying that 40 years later. So 40 years later, a good man says something and I remember it. I think that's pretty powerful, And I remember, him saying that to us while we were standing on the baseline, and he was getting upset about stuff. And he went into great detail about how someday you guys are going to be leaders of your house and this and that, and you want to be. He was really detailed about trying to develop men. I think that's a little bit of a lost art in some of our schools these days. I don't know if it can come back. I'm not quite sure the parameters of all that. Even me, I'm in the business. But, if you have an opportunity to influence young men, do it. Because I was definitely influenced by Ben, the guy that introduced me to foster care system, and by this coach who basically introduced me to the Bible, essentially, when I was 15 years old. So, yeah, I really like that. Okay, let's go back to the key passage again. Train up a child, makes you go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And let's start setting up the scene of how difficult it is to be a dad. I believe it's the hardest time in history to be a dad. I really believe that. And maybe it'll be harder in 20 years. I don't know. The workplace is really hard for young men. They have to compete with many generations of workers, AI potentially, and the stay-at-home culture. You could be competing for a job with somebody that's in out of state. They're doing it from home. It's very, very difficult. You're expected to be assertive yet really sensitive. That's a really hard thing. It's often very confusing what society wants from men. That's a whole different discussion. It's very difficult. Society does demand you have a backbone, but to be really tolerant, and that is very, very challenging. And really, a young man today may need longer to build themselves up economically, socially, physically, that kind of stuff. It takes longer for a guy. I don't see too many young men buying a house at age 22 anymore. It's not that easy now. It's very, very challenging. And of course, the social media age makes it hard to signal good character. You can certainly put a picture of yourself up, and you can put other things about yourself, but signaling character in the digital age is really challenging. And we're trying to signal we have good character as much as possible, because that's going to be the driver in your life long term. Oh, whoops, did I? Okay. Okay, so here are some specific things I think that young men, maybe, this could be at any time, but I really think some of these passages would be great to use on young men now if you're raising them, okay? And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind and all your strength. I just put that out there because of the amazing distractions there are out there these days. I mean, there are so many things to get in. When you're bored, do you open your Bible or do you go on YouTube? I think it's, if you really put all your energy into loving God with all your heart's mind and strength, it makes a big difference long term as you're developing yourself. And I just think it's harder than ever to do that now because there's so many distractions. I think protecting your image is really important because everything's recorded. So I would be, if I was a young man, I'd really protect my image, and that probably starts with how you talk. So I have the famous passage there from Ephesians: do not let unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up. And the building others up is I think, becoming more and more important in our society, and I'll explain that with a story in a second. I think character counts more than ever because it's kind of the difference maker between people, because I think we don't really do a great job of teaching character in our society in general anymore. And I think we have to accept a certain amount of suffering and to develop character. I love this passage. I read it all the time when things are not going right. We rejoice in our sufferings, know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope, and hope does not disappoint us. I just love that passage, but it makes a difference. Number 4 is kind of related to number 2, building each other's up. Each of you should look out not only for your own interest, but the interest of others. I think we need to do a better job of that in general. There's a guy at school, and I have a buddy of mine here today from my school, but we have a mutual friend named Dave Austin. He is unbelievable at school at walking into your classroom and said, hey, I saw this opportunity. You'd be really good at this. He's always thinking of other people. And I've seen him talk to people and say, you know what, I'll take care of that for you. You take the night off, I'll go to that event and cover it for you. I've seen him do that. It feels like it's weekly. he's so different that it's so noticeable. When you actually are thinking of other people, that is like the greatest gift a father can give to a son, a father can give to his community. I really believe that. The last one is just personal. It's non-biblical at all. Can we bring back wood shop, metal shop, and auto shop for our boys? It just has nothing to do with the Bible, but it just bugs me because I know boys like stuff like that. They like blowing things up. And I just wish we had that, I think. I just feel like the schools have made this profession seem less valuable by not offering those things. It bugs me. But there's no Bible passage to support that other than the fact that a lot of the disciples were fishermen, which is maybe they had to do some of these things. I don't really know. So, all right. I'm going to start closing out here. This is the church my dad built. Men build things, don't they sometimes? It's great. He built this church when he was 19 years old in 1948. It's in Parkville, Missouri. My grandpa was a carpenter, so my dad helped him on summer break. And it still stands. It's a vibrant church. And Morgan had a tournament, her last volleyball tournament in Kansas City. So I grabbed her and we went over to see the church. It's really nice. And we saw my dad's old farm and all that kind of stuff. We've sold the property, but we saw everything. So I really like that he built the church that stands today. That's pretty cool. And finally, this is a quote that I read maybe 30 years ago, this passage, and it meant a lot to me. And this is not just for men out there. I know it's Father's Day. That's the focus, but for anybody. I really like this one. Do we have a society out there? Are you the kind of person that when you say you'll do something, do you do it? I mean, this is something that's important to me, and I'll read it to you. But above all, my brothers, do not swear either by heaven or earth or by any other oath, but let your yes be yes and your no be no, so that you will not fall under condemnation. This hit me so hard one time. I started to either make a mental note or I would write down what I said I would do, even if it was the smallest thing, and then I'd try to follow through because I wanted to be that kind of person. And I've had maybe twice, but it felt great. Them say, "I can't believe how much you follow through." Yes, I really like that when they say, because I've been waiting for that forever. So I just love that, that simple thing. Are you the kind of man? Can you do what you say you're going to do? Can you discipline your kids properly without losing your cool? Can you think of others and as well as yourself? It's not an easy job. Maybe that's why we're ranked 20th in holidays. Maybe that's why we're not quite sure. So anyhow, love you guys, and thanks for the opportunity.